today we have our CTO, Ewaldsson, that's going to start to talk about 5G, and then we will have a Q&A session with Ulf. And then we will introduce Joachim Sorelius, who's head of 5G architecture, and also Dr. Sarah Masur, who's head of Ericsson research, will also address different topics. And then we will have another Q&A after these two speakers. So warm welcome, and warm welcome, Ulf.
Okay, thank you, Åsa, and great welcome. I'm really excited that we can address the very important topic of 5G. Of course, 5G in the whole conference here is a very big thing, and a lot of people are talking about it. I noticed that it's a little bit like Valentine's Day in the United States, where everybody sends each other love cards, and all the vendors are sending love cards to each other, and all the operators are sending love cards to each other, and all the vendors and operators are sending love cards to each other, and then you see where you get responses and love back and love and no love and so on, right? And we don't know yet how everything will turn out, but I'm sure there are going to be questions around that. What I mean by love cards is all these announcements that is going on. Also, we do that. So.
How many do you have?
We have the pockets full of love cards here. I think the enthusiasm on creating one global standard for the whole industry is there among all these people sending love cards, so I have no doubt about that. But it's a matter of how the industry is forming and creating itself to be able to do what we have done many times before, and that is to settle and create a new standard that is going to be needed for mobile telephony. And why is that needed then? Well, it's needed because we have this tremendous evolution of what we're doing, and you know this, and you've seen in the mobility report what we are publishing in Ericsson, 10 times data traffic to 2021. Today we have 4.5 exabytes of data in global traffic in all mobile systems, measuring only all mobile systems. How much is voice? Does anyone know that? 300 petabytes, the amazing number of 300 petabytes. That is, a petabyte is an order of magnitude 1,000 lower than an exabyte. So then you can see that voice doesn't even show up. Now we can, if we look at the graphs, I didn't bring any of the graphs, but we would need no meaning to make graphs with voice and data because data is so big.
Is that per day, per year, or per month, or what?
This is per month. This is per month. This is per month. Then we will grow this to about 50 exabytes of data, projections from the latest mobility report in 2021. So that becomes a little bit more than 10 times. So this is a conservative slide here, but it's a little bit, just about 50 exabytes of data. 90% population coverage for mobile broadband. And that is because of HSPA and wideband CDMA coverage. That's the limiting factor there, moving up from around 85% today to this gradually moving up to 90%. Actually, GSM at this time will have 95% population coverage, but mobile broadband doesn't count GSM, so here we are focusing on wideband CDMA as the limiting factor. LTE moving from 35% around that level of population coverage up to 75% population coverage by 2021. So the LTE, with those are of course based on all kinds of versions of LTE, which could be everything from 150 megabits to 300, 450, 600, or gigabit LTE, which is where we are with carrier aggregation and higher order of magnitude of MIMO getting higher and higher speeds. Now, looking at subscriptions, not so dramatic as the traffic and all that stuff. It's more just incrementally increasing. We have to date 7.3 billion mobile subscriptions, counting all the mobile subscriptions, and moving then to 9.1 billion mobile subscriptions by 2021. Mobile broadband will at that time be about 90% of that. Today we have 3.6 billion mobile broadband subscriptions, and out of those smartphones are 3.4 billion smartphones, around that level. So smartphones being the absolute dominating part of mobile broadband, being the default access to internet in the world and so on. You know all about that, so I will not go deeper than that. And then we put up prediction, and this you can really take with a grain of salt, but let's say 150 million 5G subscriptions in here. But 5G was not predominantly made for people so much, and you know that. So the most important here is, of course, that we are predicting 28 billion connected devices by 2021, as 5G is very much an Internet of Things kind of technology. Now then, looking at the use cases, what is really 5G? And obviously we get a lot of questions around this. These are categories of use cases that we think are the dominating ones, crystallizing out of the discussions that are having on a global basis on what this technology can be used for. First of all, sensors everywhere. And already now, and you are very well aware that we were able to get narrowband IoT as an evolution of LTE, where we have created a 200 kilohertz bearer in LTE that we can use for addressing sensors and sensor technology out there, both active, where we can send instructions to sensors to do things, and also sense things and get feedback on that. So both of these are very big use cases, and here is where you will find a lot of these different devices, and there is a lot of discussions, I would say, on industry players today of how sensor technology can be tied in with the cellular networks. Broadband and media everywhere is a very clear use case. I think you're aware that during CTIA last year in the United States, Verizon went out and announced their 5G development being focused on broadband and media everywhere. So this is really, you would say, a use case where 4K television, if you will be going over the mobile systems. And I'm sure that we are looking and we are thinking about even things like the Tokyo Olympics and perhaps the Korean Olympics in the same sense of creating a totally new experience for users where broadband and media everywhere will be. And those are part of our predicted 150 million mobile subscriptions that will have 5G by 2021. So then that's very clear. So,
Sorry, just one question. Do you expect traditional broadcast distribution for high bandwidth television or media to be replaced by 5G technology?
no, we don't. I will come back to that. So let's try to save some of the questions for a little bit of Q&A later, because otherwise we will not get through this. And I think also because we are providing a webcast, so there will be people out there that want you to use a microphone when you're putting your questions. So that question was about media, and do we expect the media to be replaced? The traditional broadcasting will be replaced by cellular. No, we don't. We expect these two technologies to merge into something new, where 5G will play an important role. So then moving on, smart vehicles and smart transport solutions, very important part of this. We all know that cellular technology of all kinds is being built into vehicles as we speak. 5G is embracing that, and as we are discussing about the driver-assisted evolution of vehicle and transport industry, as well as eventually perhaps autonomous driving, all of that will rely on using some very, very fast and responsive technology, where we think that 5G has a very good fit. Then we have infrastructure monitoring and control, which is another very important area of cities and how cities develop in the future. And I think we will see a lot of discussions around how the future digital analytics platforms, etc., control infrastructure of all kinds, but also in relationship to telecom networks. So here's an area where the IT industry is growing together with the telecom industry using similar analytics technology. Critical control of remote devices. This is really where factory, production, manufacturing, anything that has as a critical control. I would say robotics is a very good example. So you are looking at using the kind of latencies that we have in 5G. And last year in Mobile World Congress, you might remember that we had a digger out here that was digging the ground, and that was the first example of that. If you go out to the exhibition later, you will see many of these kind of things where we are remote controlling this and that by using 5G technology. And then you have interaction and human IoT, and that is really where you get that response back to humans using this technology. And perhaps you're aware of something called haptic experiences, and that means really that you get an immediate feedback on something in a remote control or whatever. If you're tilting something, you would feel in your hand that it's tilting and so forth. And that needs a very, very low latency, why it's a very good fit with 5G. So this summarizes the main areas of use cases, and you will be able to use these categories as we go forward, looking at the different things that we're going to present to you in terms of partnerships and other things that we are doing. Now, having said that, we need some really big architectural vision for how we're going to draft out 5G. And here is the 5G architecture that we are working with. This will be an evolution, of course, of the 4G world that we live in today, but it really shows and divides up the operator space in 3 important domains. The access and mobility domain, the service provider core, the service provider IT cloud. On these, each side here are all the clouds in the world. And that, basically every enterprise is going through digitalization. Either they put their applications in the Amazon cloud, for example, or in their own cloud, or in some sort of cloud infrastructure. On this side are all devices in the world that would be connected. And that could be anything from a light switch, to a projector, to a car, to a remote controlled drone, to a mobile handset, whatever that is. And what we want to do with this is very simple. We want to connect all these devices in the world through the network to all clouds in the world. The other big trend, which is very important to remember, is that this architecture becomes like it's a layered kind of architecture. And we come from an industry where everything has been in this way. So you talked about a radio base station. A radio base station is in this way. It has its own control system, it has its own management system, it has its own modulation, its own chips, its own whatever, down to the radio transmission. And with this architecture, we're getting a much more layered way. So, for example, management and control, analytics and so on will stretch all the way from the Amazon cloud all the way over to even perhaps being included in the device as such. That's what we're trying to achieve, and that's why this picture is very important. It illustrates a big movement that you could see in the whole industry. So this is not an Ericsson pitch for an Ericsson product. This is a development for what is happening in the entire telecom industry as it becomes merged with the IT industry. And this is the same if you're an IBM or if you're a Cisco, for example, who is a strategic partner to us when it comes to the transport layer and the control together with the transport. So you could take almost any press release that you see in the Mobile World Congress and you can plot it into a picture like this, and you could see the strategic moves by almost every company. Now, those things are based on some major movements. More devices and more sensors. Why is that happening? Because chips and silicon gets cheaper, and as it gets cheaper, it gets built into more things. That's a very big driver force there. Then we have more automation, more analytics, multi-domain, multi-vendor, and that's for this control layer. And there you could basically say that the way that database technology is developing, the way that analytics technology is developing is really driving that. And there is not and even if you look at a thing like the defense industry, analytics is one of the key components of being in that industry. So almost every industry in the world is working very hard to use these kind of new technologies together with sensor, for example, to draw conclusions and make automated systems. Everybody knows about machine learning, or about artificial intelligence, which even really wise people are warning against. And I think a lot of that is happening in this layer. So this is a very important layer. And it goes all the way out to the clouds where there are another analytics layer included in each one of these clouds. And then you have the areas of applications in cloud infrastructure and transport. Applications are being virtualized. Cloud infrastructure is based on open source communities to a very large degree. Transport is being software defined, and it's being controlled by the whole stack of softwares. So this is changing the role very much for example, being a vendor like we are. What do we build? And Ericsson is proud to see that all the announcements that we are doing is in this context, including the Cisco strategic partnership that we have. But also the partnership with Intel, for example, which is helping us to produce and build parts of this, everything from what's going on in the device silicon up to how we build our cloud infrastructure with the HDS 8000 server that we launched last year and that is out there and now being shipped as a cloud development and cloud environment. Good. Then you would say, what is then 5G on top of this? What can 5G really do if we build the networks according to this infrastructure? Well, it's quite simple actually. It's really this is very illustrative, I know that. And each one of these things, all the devices, can be connected through this network to their particular cloud. And this is what we call the network slicing concept. So network slicing means that it's the same network, one network infrastructure, but you create a slice for a particular industry, for a particular need at a particular time. And that's what we are building and working on to make that happen. And that will be allocated based on that this is a very horizontal network and that the same software that we have on, for example, management and control can stretch all the way into the cloud that is asking for a particular pipe. Why is that important? Well, if you are a cloud for automotive, if you are the cloud for BMW, then you would be saying, I need to contact this particular car right now and I need to do a transaction of this many bits and those has to reach that car with this kind of performance. Then you are able to specify a slide. You could say, if you're familiar with engineering, you could say some sort of a VPN tunnel, but in a totally new shape that exists for a few seconds or milliseconds, if you will, and it actually makes sure that that transaction is completed in a safe and well done way, and then it's closed down again. So these network slices makes it possible for the network to allocate resources to a particular need, and in a safe way. Now, how are we going to get to these kind of networks? Well, of course, it's extremely important for us to have a roadmap of different trials and trial systems. And for Ericsson, we are working then with a number of steps in this. And you remember, if you went to the press briefing last year, that I was talking that we were in the phase of pre-standardization collaborations around the vision of 5G. That was completed already as we were in Barcelona last year in February. I would say that everybody in the industry kind of agreed on these concepts and where we were going. In the meantime, we have now built a number of test beds. We are showing what we call the phase 2 test bed out here, where we are able to do much more. So we are here in the 2016 to 18 timeframe now. ITU requirements are clear. We have the work on 3GPP release 14.15. We have 5G requirements and study items, both started up and in operation in the industry. We have initial 5G work items in place. We have advanced trials. We are actually doing trials with the kind of system that we're showing out in the booth here, producing 25 gigabit per second downlink speeds in the 15 gigahertz band, using spatial separation between beams and beam steering from multi-user MIMO, which is really where we should be at this time. So my point to you is that we are where we should be in terms of the time frame. We are keeping the proof points to deliver 5G on time. Next phase is here. Then we are in the phase where this will be commercialized, fully commercialized. We have ITU evaluations. We have World Radio Congress number 19 coming up with a lot of spectrum stuff and spectrum releases. We have 3GPP release 16 continuing and commercial networks in place by that time frame. Okay, very clear on that. Then you could say that it's very important for us as Ericsson to help everything we can do to produce a global standard. And my initial comments for some of you who were already here about love letters being sent in this industry, those love letters between vendors, operators, and operators in all kinds of directions are here to create that global ecosystem in a way. You should read it in that sense. It's very early to draw a conclusion that this and that could set the standard. What we don't like to see is, for example, a constellation of one operator and one vendor trying to set the standard. That will never work. We know that from experience, because what happens is that everybody else in the ecosystem reacts against that, and it quickly forms a new alliance saying that, you know, we will do something different. So in that sense, that doesn't really work. But this is the kind of work that is going on. We have a lot of research initiatives as well. 5G PPP had a press conference yesterday. We spoke about the research in 5G PPP. In METIS, METIS 1, METIS 2 is where we are right now in Europe, for example. These are some sub-projects of that. We have industry alignment. That's what I talked about, to make sure that we get as aligned as we can. This time, compared to last time, we have a bigger ambition what 5G is compared to 4G. It includes fixed accesses as well. It includes also a relationship to Wi-Fi and so on. So it's a much broader ambition. Why did we do that? Because otherwise it's not possible for us to deliver on this promise. We can't build just a mobile system that will connect all these things together. We need the network slicing to work. Network slicing will not be standardized in 3GPP most likely. A big part of it will be in IETF and IEEE because it's IP technology. So in that sense, broader standardization approach than before, much broader industry approach than before, and so far so good. Big interest in other standardization bodies to join and be part of the 5G development. So that, I think it's very good. We're getting a much less of a polarization where the mobile industry is against the IP industry, if you will, and so forth, which is a very good progress, and I'm very happy and pleased that we are able to do that. Time plan agreements. Ericsson has worked very hard with ITU and 3GPP to align and make sure that there is a good alignment on time planning in this. And then I just wanted to mention to you our kind of status. Now we're moving from industry. That was industry, now it's Ericsson for a few minutes. We have 15 pilots that we're doing with industries out there, and I'm talking non-telco. So here you find our cooperation with Scania or with ABB or Boliden Mines and so on. So we're working with a number of different players that are industry players. And if you remember, the strategy is to gather as much information as we can from other industries, what their requirements would be on 5G. Mining company Boliden, for example, we are learning what would it take to remote control all the mining equipment that is used. It's not only them, this has become a worldwide trend now, so now every mining company is talking about using these kind of technologies for remote controlling the mining equipment, which is a safer environment as well. So lots of these things are important parts of these gatherings. And Sara will come back to a number of these corporations. Our head of research, she will go through, because we are driving this as research project in Ericsson Research. Then we have customer partners who are doing the testbed work together with us. We have a number of testbeds out there that we have been using for this, and we have today announced 20 of these relationships on research, working with our testbeds together with operators. So these are 20 operators. And then we have the testbed work where we are showing out here our 25 gigabit multi-user MIMO setup. And just quickly a picture of a lot of the partners. These are the ones that we have announced. I can see that you're taking pictures of that, but I think many of these are also announcing with others and so on, so there's no exclusivity. We are in love, but they love others also. Right? And the good thing with this is that it helps to get that global standard going. That's really what this is very much about. Then we have the different industries, and I will not go through this because of time, so I think Sara will go through much more what we do, but it's an automotive transport, manufacturing process. You can come back to the picture I showed before about the main use cases, and you will find the proof points. We have them in here in Sara's presentation, but we also have them out on the floor in real demos, which we are proud to bring to you, the reality of 5G, where you can see what we're actually doing. We're doing with this out there, right? In terms of remote controlling robots, so we have these cars that are platooning, for example, by creating that efficient using 5G. So this year in the exhibition, we're making 5G very tangible. And in the area, we have two areas in our exhibition. We have this big hall, our 6,000 square meters here. Outside we have made an open exhibition, because here it's only by invitation where you are now. In the open part, we're showing 5G examples for more public, so what they can see, what can it really be used for. And where we have even a popular thing like a vineyard for agriculture here, where they are connected with this kind of technology to show that this could be a very feasible, a very reasonable way of doing agriculture in the future. And then we are coming back finally to the test beds, and Joachim Sorelius from our radio business is going to talk about these test beds and what they actually do. And here are everything, all the proof points. You will get a guidance on this before you leave here, so you can see each one of these proof points that we have out. We have eight of them here on making 5G a reality. And that concludes my part. So now we can take questions.
Yes, let's look at you.
Ulf, what do you think is the biggest risk to the development of 5G? Is it fragmentation? Is it securing privacy? What do you feel, what could go wrong?
Good. What could go wrong? For each one of the ones that, a lot of things can go wrong. And probably most of them will. So, and the good thing is we have a lot of discussions in the industry about just the things that you mentioned, both the thing of breakouts, trying to branch out 5G in one direction or another. This is the first time that we're actually doing a lot of commercial launches before the standard is even set. That has never happened in the industry before. Can we handle that? Hopefully. Is there a risk for a branching? Yeah. If something branches out and becomes its own branch, it will not survive as a global standard is going forward. It will become a branch. There can be relationships between customers here, but I hope that we will come together in one. What it means for the industry, it means more R&D is needed. The more branching, the more R&D, the less scale. It will just slow down the scale a little bit if it branches. But in principle, we will at the end. So if you ask me this question in a press briefing here in Ericsson's booth 5 years from now, where you will obviously be and I will be here, and then we will talk about this, then we will say we have a global industry. But there are going to be, it's going to be a road to get there. Maybe branching will happen. I hope that it doesn't. It will make us faster globalize and scale the technology if it doesn't.
Yeah.
When it comes to security, it's a little bit similar thing. There will be, the good thing with security is that disruptive events helps us to improve security. For some reason, we have much more technology on security than is actually sold and deployed. And I think the reason for that is that sometimes events are needed to make everyone aware, to say, oh, we should really make this more secure. That is an unfortunate part, but I'm not the one who is operating the networks. I just think that there is more technology available to deploy on security than is really deployed. So I really hope that we will see a bigger deployment of security solutions.
Okay.
You talked about the love letters. Are there already any operators putting their own money in your R&D activities, or is it just your own money?
Wow, it doesn't really work like that. So our own R&D, if you will, today we have a very open way of doing R&D. So we have a number of partners and so on. It's much more similar to the way that a car is built, also in the telecom industry. So we have partners helping us to build what we build. It's a whole ecosystem around the Ericsson of companies that are taking risk, that are doing research, that are doing R&D activities, which is going towards building 5G systems. So it's not like 20 years ago where you had to build everything yourself, and if you went to an Ericsson factory 30 years ago, you would find us producing even the plastic knobs on the bottom of the racks. And we don't. And with that, we're not R&Ding those things either. They are done by partners everywhere. So in that sense, you would say there's a lot of people helping Ericsson to put our system, our products, to make them available in the market. If customers are financing our R&D, in a way they are, because they pay software licenses to us, which helps us finance it. So that's how it works.
But there's no direct financial help.
No, not in the sense that we put $1 billion in Ericsson and we really hope that they will be developing it. That would be lovely. I would encourage that model. Unfortunately, this industry is not structured right now to do that, I think. So, it's a good suggestion, definitely.
This is Thomas Kuhn of Wirtschaftswoche und Business Weekly. we're facing a global race of technology, and on the one hand, the industry is running together, and on the other hand, obviously, it's everyone trying to be first. It's competition of global regions as well as companies themselves. Where would you think that the European players are currently in that race, and do you think that we have a chance to be quicker within this group of racers?
I am a bit pessimistic on Europe, and that is sad to say. I really hope, Ericsson has 60% of our R&D in Europe. We definitely would like to see a much more aggressive operator drive for 5G in Europe than we have. There are no of these very early launches in Europe. There is Verizon in the US, there is AT&T, there is Korea Telecom, there is SKT, there is Docomo, for example, on early launches, and all of those 5 which I just mentioned are not so European companies. And we are deeply entrenched in each one of those 5 early launches, and we will be part of them. And therefore, we would encourage anyone who can put in a good word for making someone coming out with an early launch in Europe. That would be a very good thing to happen. This question came up during the 5G PPP press conference yesterday, and someone asked bravely, is it important to be first? It is very important to be first, because it sends a very strong signal. You can imagine all these industries that Sarah will talk about in a minute, what kind of signal it sends that Europe is taking a strong stance to be very early on this kind of technology. So it's not only for the telco industry, this is actually as important for other European industry to be involved.
Thank you.
The last question for Ulf now.
Sam, going to go to Land Mobile. How much of an issue are the business cases for this, and also the amount of investment for mobile operators maybe have meant, given the fact that digital streams of revenue are under attack through the services right at the top, that sort of thing?
Great question. So the question there is about the over-the-top struggle with the mobile operators. How is the business case built up for this versus the capex spend that operators can do to really get here? I think we see a wider range of different strategies among our customers than we have ever seen. So they are different in their strategy. They are making choices on if they want to go all the way in on, for example, media delivery, or some of them are even starting their own television broadcasts and so on. So we see operator role being more differentiated than from before. I think that's the first very important point. It's not one role the way it was when we had voice subscriptions sold over counter in shops. It's becoming much more diversified, which kind of enterprise offerings and how they are working themselves with going into different industries and what they want to do. Then secondly, I think that the business cases, one very strong requirement in 5G is also the evolution of 4G to 5G. In other words, we do not want to build an entirely new network. Please make it incremental so we can build on our 4G investments and gradually get there, rather than to make a completely new business case for a new network. And that we are doing. In addition to that, we will have new air interfaces and new products on new frequencies and so on, but those are more additions to an evolution of the network. So that's an important piece of the answer. And then again, I think, to finalize the last point, I think this is the biggest opportunity that the telecom industry has ever had. I think this is a way where networks can become more relevant than they have ever been to every other industry out there. It's no longer just important to websites. This is important for all industries in the world. So I think the opportunity is bigger. It's always hard to make business cases on very big opportunities because they become impossible to calculate. It's like asking what's the business case on the iPhone. So I think in a way this is more of a journey and finding a road to that journey. And I think by the 20 partnerships that we have, we can announce that many of the customers we talk to, many of the service providers, are putting this in as one of the key strategies to achieve what they want to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.